seems. In terms of just try to be able to record just in case it works. So this contract of employment is really, really important as an artist to be able to work in institution or whichever place that you might choose to. So the contract of employment is really important, and actually whenever you're getting employment, even the very first time you do an interview and they accept you into the organization, it is really important for you to be able to see what are the terms of employment. Okay, so basically you can be able to choose to accept or to decline depending on maybe if the contract does not favor you. Okay, so basically this contract of employment, it includes a lot of aspects in it. For example, it spells out maybe for your position in that company. It also spells out the responsibilities and the duties, okay, what you're supposed to do. And if there are targets that you're supposed to meet, then definitely they also need to be included there, so that at least when you're starting to work, you already know what is expected of you. And they also are going to give out maybe, for example, the salary that you're supposed to be able to get. And of course, that salary, they are going also to give you maybe some of the allowances. Maybe if you're entitled to allowances, they also have to indicate there. And they will also indicate other things, maybe like, for example, let's say the leave days, like for if you are supposed to maybe get maybe 2 months or 1 month leave annually and so on. So, and definitely they will also give you maybe some of the expectations, how you're supposed to behave. Maybe, for example, if you are working with them, like for example, they will spell out maybe, for instance, the dress code. If they really are into employees maybe dressing in a certain way, then they will have to indicate it, okay, in your contract. They will maybe give you maybe some of the do's and the don'ts, like for example, in terms of respect, maybe respect to each and every employee who is working there, or the procedure to be followed, maybe for example, if you are raising a problem and so on. So these are the things that it's just like a part of your induction, okay? So it brings you up to date what is expected of you in that company. And of course, most of the time, some things can be written and others can be oral, okay? So maybe they can be able to tabulate each and everything that is required of you, and sometimes you'll be able to note that they will go ahead and maybe have some things, maybe they will orally tell you what is expected of you and so on. So basically, this contract of employment is quite important. It's not something that you can just overlook it, because also the contract, maybe for example, if you have a 1 year or 2 years contract, then your termination will also depend on what you are supposed to do according to how the contract is stipulated. So, for example, they sometimes they will write it in your contract. So, if you cannot abide to their rules and regulations, then they can be able to terminate your contract. Okay, so basically, and that's why it is really important for you to be able to know, okay, what the organization wants, and for you not to do things that they are not required. Okay, like for example, fighting in the workplace, it is not allowed. So for example, if you fight with another employee, then your contract can be terminated. It sounds something really minor, but if it is indicated in your contract and you are able to, to go against what the contract is saying, then you can be the contract can be terminated and they will not want your services anymore. So those are the small things which you have to make sure that you go through. Just like, for example, when you rent a house, and when you're renting that house, then you're given the contract. Okay, so I don't know if some of you have gone through that contract. They have to, to indicate all the terms, okay? That maybe if they owe you maybe some extra services, then they will have to indicate there. Okay, so if they want you maybe to behave in a certain way, like for example, if they say that their house, they do not want pets, they do not want dogs, they do not want plants, and so on, so you are supposed to abide to that. So if they say that there should be no playing of loud music, okay, so you also have to read through. It's just not for you just to get an apartment, but you haven't checked on what their terms and regulations are. And maybe, for example, you are a person who plays really loud music, and definitely you'll not feel okay in such a place, because you'll feel like, like I'm paying this rent just to have my own space and do whatever that I want to do. But at the end of the day, maybe they had indicated that rule. Okay, so you're not supposed to be able to play loud music. So it is really, really important for you to go through the contract, and if you have any questions, you are able to ask them. Okay, you get clarification, and if you're going to get maybe that house, for instance, then it is something that you really feel like you can do with. Okay, so if you cannot do without, then you just look for another apartment. Okay, so the same way the contract of employment plays the same role. Okay, so for example, if you are someone who wants your own space, you do not want to be followed around maybe when you're doing your work, then it is really important also to be able to see, okay, is there maybe strict supervision? Okay, so if there is strict supervision, then you can be able to maybe feel okay. If you are going to sign that contract, then you will know that people are going to be on your head. Okay, all the time they are asking you, maybe they are they are outside the door, checking whatever you are doing. Okay, so if you feel like you're not comfortable in such an environment, working with a lot of pressure, then you might choose not to accept that contract. Okay, so you will have to read through, so that you don't so that you do not stay in an organization whereby you are not comfortable. Okay, so the contract of employment enhances that, for you not to be able to feel uncomfortable, for you just to accept the way things are. Okay, and so basically that is what the contract of employment entails. So I want us to talk about the duties of the employer. Okay, so the duties of an employer, this is basically under the Employment Act, in a statute that declares and defines the fundamental rights of employees. Okay, so the employees have their own rights, and that is really important for you to be able to know. It's not only that you are just working there, but also your rights are important. Okay. Okay, so when you're talking about the duties of employers, so basically we are meaning the rights, the rights. But Shane, if you have any question, maybe. If you do not, please mute your mic. So the duties of employers, so basically means the rights of employees. Okay, so when you're meaning, when you're talking about the duties that the employers have, then basically it is on the positive side of the employees, what the employees are basically entitled to. So basically this is under the constitution, and that's why you will always see that if there is violation of these rights, then the employees will always go to the streets to demonstrate. I think we have already seen this severally, and they normally do this. And for example, for you even to demonstrate, then you really need to be to have complied with the laws. Okay, so you can't just go to the streets and you don't have grounds. Okay, maybe it is not in the constitution and so on, so it is not even a law, and so you always go to the streets if you feel that it is your right, it is written in the constitution, it is under the contract of employment, and that right of yours as an employee has been violated. So whenever even you're going to the streets, it is your right. Okay, so basically people can stand and listen. Okay, even you can file these cases to courts and they will be able to address them. So you just don't feel like, okay, our employer is just unfair and you run to the streets. So it does not work like that unless it is a violation of the rights of the employees, which is under the constitution. Okay, that's when you will go to the streets. But unless there is a violation of the laws, then you have no right to go to the streets. So basically, I think we will just try to go through the duties of an employer. And basically, it is really important for you to be able to know these rights. The duties an employer has, actually, they're general. This was a general. It doesn't just apply to one company or two. It just cuts across all the companies, okay? And knowing that our industry, which is hospitality, we deal with guests directly, and of course there is food contact and so on. So it is really important also to know what the employers also need to provide to us to be able to work effectively. Okay, number one, maybe you can talk about the employer has a duty to ensure that the health and safety of every person employed is protected, okay, while they are working, as provided in the Factories Act, which is in caption 514. Okay, so basically health and safety at workplace, it is a key responsibility. So health and safety at workplace, each and every person always wants to work at a place that it is safe. Okay, it is safe to your health, it is safe also to maybe the tools that you're working with and so on. So I don't know how many people watch news and they are updated with the news, because you will always note that there is a company, I think there is a factory which was producing, I don't know, is it batteries? And then they were emitting a lot of lead. I don't know if you have come across that one. I think it was affecting the people from the coastal region. It was aired on the television and so on. How many people have watched this? Any person who has an idea of what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So Mary, which company was it?
I really did follow up about the company, but I saw the story. So they were asking for compensation of their family, that they lost children, their husbands are important somehow, something like that.
Yes. Yeah. So you note that that's true, Mary. So you note that the health and safety at workplace, it is really important, okay? Whatever that you're supposed to do, you should also make sure that at least your employees are well protected. So a lot of employees over there were saying that they did not even have the right equipment to be able even to do the work that they were supposed to do, and they did not have the right clothing, they did not have the right, tools, especially if you're working with lead and so on. This is a very dangerous chemical. It has a lot of side effects. So if you are an employer, you should make sure that your employees are really well taken care of, okay? So not only even your employees, but also the community around, okay? And that's why you will always see that also the community were also complaining, because also the emission of the lead the emission of the lead also affected the community around, okay? So you will notice that you will have to make sure that not only the employees are well taken care of, but also the surrounding, the community is also, you also have a proper way you dispose your chemicals and so on. So if you do not comply with this act that is in the constitution, you will note that you will face a lot of serious consequences, okay? And you will end up compensating the employees dearly, okay? So you will see that even if they will definitely take you to court, and they will argue on this basis of health and safety, okay? So they have a right, because it is provided in the Factories Act caption 514, which is under the constitution, and it allows the employees to be able to be given safety and good health while they are working, okay? So you'll note that the company will have to pay, I don't know if it is millions or billions, for them to be able to compensate for the harm that they have actually caused their employees, and also maybe the people who are around it, okay? So this, you'll note that it's not only the employees who are going to be affected, also their families are also going to be affected by default, okay? So if the husband, for example, is the one who is working there, then comes at home, then maybe the clothing that he was wearing, and maybe he did not change, then he will bring back the lead at home, okay? So the kids, whenever they are going to hug their dad, or when he's going to come with those clothes at home, he has actually transmitted the lead to home, okay? So the entire family is going to be affected as a result of the negligence of their employers. So it is something that is not taken lightly, okay? So another duty of the employer is about employers have specific duties in regarding to each workplace, okay? So this one is just making sure that the workplace has safety adherence, okay, according to health and safety regulations, including maybe in terms of ventilation, lighting, sound, and so on. So basically, this one talks about, maybe, for example, an employer who is, let's just come at home when you're talking about our hospitality industry. Like, for example, you are a chef and you are working maybe in the kitchen, and you will note that maybe, I think, when you are doing, let's just try to backdate time when we were doing maybe the production unit, and you noted that there is a certain should have windows in terms of natural light coming to the kitchen. Maybe you should have maybe good lighting, okay, so that you are able to work on a clear environment. You can be able to see it. Maybe in terms of ventilation, there's a lot of ventilation because the kitchen is hot, okay, so they have to make sure that at least each and everything is in place. So if the employer is not able to ensure that this premise or the workstation in which the employee is working in is not safe in terms of lighting, in terms of ventilation, maybe in terms of sound and so on, then the employees can go to the streets. They can sue the employer because it is their right, okay, to be able to work in to be able to have a workstation which is well prepared, okay. So you don't want to be a chef and you can't even see the onion that you are chopping, and then of the day you'll end up chopping all your fingers, okay. So if you are someone maybe who cannot control, maybe you get affected by a lot of heat, then definitely that is not a good environment for you to work. Not only that, it is a kitchen should always be light, should always be hot, but also the employers need to know on how to be able to regulate this heating system so that at least the employees are able to work in an environment that is well controlled in terms of maybe temperature, in terms of heating and so on. So basically that is a very important a duty which the employers have to deal with, and in regards to that, you can also, let's see, like an example. For example, you can see that during this pandemic, the COVID-19, you see that even Magoha is really strict in terms of how the colleges should adhere to these precautions, okay. Like for example, he's saying that a lot of universities up to now have not complied to maybe the standard, okay, the standard, the measures they are supposed to take through making sure that even if the students are going back to school, then the establishment should make sure that at least they have put these measures in place for them to be able to provide an environment which is secure, okay, an environment which the students are just not going to be infected with this disease, right, left and center, okay. So just the same way whereby there is this body which restricts, okay, make sure that you are given a certificate for you to be able, you have made sure that everything is in place for you to be able to work, then the same way the employer should also make sure that at least everything is of standard, okay. They are not going against anything that can bring harm to their employees. So it is really, really important. It's not just for you just to do things anyhowly, but there are always bodies which make sure that these things are working, and they are working for the benefit of the people who also are working there. So another duty that the employer has is to ensure that production of mechanical handling, chemical handling level and use is not harmful to the employees, and that all products are labeled appropriately, okay. So basically the employer should always ensure that maybe, for example, if they are handling chemicals and so on, they give a lot of information, education to their employees on how to handle these chemicals, okay? And for example, in terms of labeling and so on, they will always have to label them, okay? So remember that it is up to the employers to be able to know that if anything goes wrong, goes wrong while the employee is working, then it will be their responsibility, okay? So they will have to make sure that these things are always labeled and so on. And that's why induction is really, really important. So each and every time you maybe get a job, you will always have an induction whereby the employer will always try to familiarize you with what they are working with, okay? And most of the time you will find that you are given maybe a peer, someone who has worked there for maybe a long time. They can be able to guide you for the very first week before even you start your duties. For the very first week, they will be able to guide you through. I don't know. Maybe some of you have not started working, but when you will start working, then you will be able to note. Even if you are going to go to your attachment, you'll always see that you are attached to maybe a peer person, okay? Someone who is going to guide you through, someone who is going to let you know how things work there, okay? So maybe, for example, they have labeled, like say, for example, if it is maybe citric acid, or maybe, for example, it is baking soda and so on. They maybe for them they place them in maybe containers, okay? Maybe they have, some big containers in which they place this um, agents. And you will notice that maybe, for example, if you're working in the kitchen, you might not be able to know which container contains what. Unless someone just lets you know, inducts you and tells you, okay, this container is the one that has baking soda, this one is the one that has citric acid, the other one contains what. So it is really important for you to be able to know this. Otherwise, you will mess up. Okay, so you end up mixing things right, left, and center, and you cause a lot of damages and so on. So it is really important, at least for the employers, to ensure that they have labeled, okay, they have labeled the agents, okay, things that are a bit dangerous. Maybe, for example, you are in housekeeping and you are using maybe a lot of maybe some chemicals, okay? So remember that, especially when you are housekeeping, I don't know if you have done housekeeping unit, so you'll notice that if you are able to clean even the rooms, you're going to use a lot of maybe detergents, you're going to use some chemicals so that you can be able to remove some stains, okay? So these chemicals, some of you might, come across some chemicals that you have never even seen in your life, okay? So you might just maybe smell them, and it's something that should not be smelled, okay? And maybe, for example, you just want to touch it with your bare hands, and basically it's not, it will corrode uh, um, your hands. So basically you have to make sure that at least you are aware, okay? Someone informs you or they label it, okay? Some employees are, have funny characters. Some of them, they will just, pour some liquids and just put them in different containers, and they don't even label it. Okay, so the supervisor should always, make sure that at least these things are labeled, so that the other person who is going to come for the next shift is able to know what to use. Okay, so just don't use anything that you are just told to use. Make sure that at least you are well versed with it. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in big trouble. So, another duty of an employee is to be able to ensure to provide safe entry and exit from the workplace. Okay, first aid facilities and health facilities should be installed, whereby the employees also can be able to access them easily, and also safe drinking water should also be provided. Okay, maybe here we can write about Safe entry and exit. Okay, so this one consists of first aid and health facilities. Okay, so they will always have to ensure that the establishment complies also to this requirement, in which they ensure that they provide safe entry and exits. Okay, this is in terms in case there is fire, in case there is maybe an attack. So at least you are able to move very fast. And you notice that just imagine in case of a fire and you cannot be able to, maybe move through. Okay, maybe the doors are locked and there is no way you can get out and so on, or maybe, just think of these tragedies. Okay, so we cannot assume that these things will never happen, but they will always happen. Okay, so if not today, tomorrow, in the near future, and so on. So you have to make sure that you as an employer, you provide a safe entry and exit, especially for your employees in case of maybe fire, in case of an attack, and so on, so that at least they are able to move from that establishment to a safe place. First aids is very important. Maybe, for example, you are in the kitchen and you cut yourself. At least you should be able to be, your wound should be dressed as fast as possible. For example, if you are in the F&B department and you are maybe carrying the glasses and they break down, they hurt you or they hurt the guest, you can be able at least to dress those wounds. Okay, so first aids kits, you'll always find them at very accessible places, and most of the time the employees are also maybe given some trainings on how to be able to use these first aid kits in case of such incidences. And health facility is very important inside the establishment. So, like for example, also at Zitec University there is a clinic, right? Zitec University there is a clinic. Do we agree with that? Anyone who has gone to the clinic at Zitec? Anyone? Judith? Judith, have you accessed the clinic?
No.
You even don't know it exists.
Yes.
So we have a clinic. I don't know. I think in town. In town we do not. I'm not sure, but at TRC we do have. Just because I normally actually I work from the main campus, so I am aware about the clinic that is there. Maybe in town, maybe you might not be having, but basically the establishment, even if the university has to run, they always have to make sure that these things are in place, okay? Because we are humans, okay? We can get sick at any time. So, for example, if you have stomach aches or you have headaches and so on, so there should be a medical officer, okay? There should be a nurse, for instance. So I think also, let's just not talk about the university, also in your high schools, okay? Because I think most of you are boarding. So in your high schools, you noted that there were clinics and there were nurses. Huh? Is it right, Mwende? Mwende, at your high school, did you have you had?
Yes.
Yes. So you note that if maybe, for example, you have maybe a short illness, the nurse can be able to prescribe maybe some medication. Unless it is worse, then they can be able maybe to call an ambulance to take you to maybe a hospital. Okay, so they are there just in case of maybe the minor illnesses. Like for example, if you have a cough or um, you have maybe malaria, or maybe you have, the short illnesses, they will always make sure that at least they try addressing it. And if it becomes worse, then they can be able to recommend you to, get further tests. Okay. So also in the workplace, you also are entitled to be able to be provided with these health facilities. Okay. I think in the hotel that I was working in, there was clinics. Yeah, I think the time I was working in Laiko Regency in Nairobi. Okay. So there was a clinic, there was a nurse there. So like for example, if you had cats, if you had maybe these minor sicknesses, she could be able to treat them immediately, and you can be able to continue your work. Okay. So for example, if you have an headache, she was able to prescribe maybe some painkillers just for you, just to relieve the pain, and you can still continue your work. So you don't have to go home just because of a mild headache. Okay. Maybe for example, you had drunk the previous night, and the hangover is so bad. Okay. So maybe she can help you maybe with the painkiller, so that at least you do not waste that time, going at home and so on. So it is really important for the workplace also. These are the things that you also check on, maybe in terms of the contract when you're signing this contract. Okay. And you notice that sometimes if the employers are not able to do this, they give medical cards. Okay. Like for example, they give you health insurance cards. I don't know, some of you have come across them, maybe from your parents or relatives you have seen. Maybe they have the medical insurances. So if maybe they note that the establishment are not offering these health facilities, they can give you the one that you can be able to go to any hospital. Okay, they pay for you. So they will have to ensure that they have complied with that. At least their employees are well taken care of in terms of their health. So an employer is also supposed to provide information, instructions regarding maybe the training, supervision, and in terms of personal improvement, advancement, and so on. So, and that's why I told you that it is really important for you, not only when you're getting employed. Of course, you're getting employed because you are qualified for that job, but at the end of the day, you can say offer trainings. Okay. So at the end of the day, as much as you are qualified to work there, they also need to do a bit of training. Okay, you will always maybe given those first trainings in terms of induction, or for example, if you are working there, there is always those courses that we call the refresher courses. Okay, the ones that you go back to the institution. Maybe I think I saw it Utalii Hotel, the hotel I was working in. They had an agreement with Utalii Hotel, Utalii College. Okay. Sometimes it is a college and at the same time it is a hotel, so you might a bit confused. So they had the same agreement with Utalii College, whereby we could be taken maybe, for example, for refresher courses, just for you, just to remind you on maybe the basics. Okay, maybe for example, you are in service, you are in the F&B department, or you are maybe in the kitchen, production department, then you will note that refresher courses are just not there because maybe, for example, you don't know your work. Okay, some people might, confuse it just because you really do not know how to operate, or you do not know how to work well, and so on. So they're just there just to remind you, just from the word refreshing, okay, just to remind you some of the basic things that you might have maybe forgotten. Okay, like for example, if I ask you maybe to draw the map of Africa, some of you will struggle. Okay, it's not that you never pass that stage, but you passed it, and maybe you are the best in drawing the map of Africa, just because, with time, sometimes you forget the things that you did back then. Okay, so it is really important to be able to be reminded, okay, some of these things. So that's why refresher courses are really important, just for you to be able to know, like for example, if you had forgotten maybe how to cut maybe baraton, kind of maybe vegetable cutting, and maybe cutting maybe juliennes and so on. So you can be able to go back and be reminded on how to do this, and when you come back, your skills have gone to another level. Okay, so the trainings are really important, maybe in terms of, maybe for example, maybe in terms of firefighting, customer service, and so on. So they will always have this training each and every time. And whenever you cover this training, so the time you get a certificate, and this certificate enables you in terms of maybe advancement, career growth. Okay, so maybe for example, if there is a position of maybe a supervisor, okay, these are the things that they're going to look at. Okay, so have you done these trainings? Have you, what other extra thing do you have apart from, having the experience? So they help you in one way or another to be able to raise through the ranks. Okay, so for you to become a supervisor is not just something that will happen overnight. Remember, even if you have to rise through the ranks, you also have to start somewhere, and you always have to keep on equipping yourself. Each and every time these openings of trainings are there, you always have to ensure that at least you have participated in them. They will always help in terms of promotions. Okay, maybe for example, if they want even to top up your wages, they can even consider such things. So another duty of an employer is basically to provide this employment act and other relevant laws concerning the contract of employment. So basically, and that's why it is really important for the employers to be able to give you, each and every time you sign this employment contract, you'll always be given a copy. Okay, so you end up signing maybe, for example, 2 copies, yours and for the establishment to keep a copy, just in case you sometimes you find that maybe some employers are a bit cheeky. They can change a few things maybe in your contract which you are not able to monitor. But if you have a copy of the contract of employment that you have signed, then even if they are supposed to terminate your contract, they will terminate it at least with, you are also aware that is maybe something that you violated, and it is also under the contract of employment, but they are not supposed to infringe any of your rights just because you are not aware of it, or maybe the copy that you had was not the same as the ones they had. So it is really important that you also have a copy of your contract. So another one, I think we have talked about this one, the employers should provide safety materials, equipment, Okay, so like for example, uniforms. Okay, so our industry is whereby the uniforms are really important. We wear uniforms, and that's why you always find that also when you're doing your practicals, you are having maybe these uniforms. You might not understand why are we, having these uniforms, but when you are working in this hospitality industry, we wear uniforms, okay? And these uniforms, I don't know whether maybe when you're doing maybe your production or your service unit, you are told the importance of wearing this uniform and so on. Let me assume that you are informed on the importance of wearing a uniform in this industry. Okay, so the uniforms are they protect you in a way, like for example when you're talking a chef's uniform. Okay, you'll notice that just from the word go, from a chef, the chef coat, the neck scarf, the shoes, the apron, you know, each and every clothing of a chef has its own importance. It has, some safety with it, okay? You'll always be told why is it important to wear maybe a chef's coat, which is double-sided, okay? So it protects you, okay? And so when you're working in the kitchen, the employer should make sure that they are providing you with this clothing for you to be able to work effectively. Okay, you shouldn't be worried, like for example when you're toasting an egg, when you're toasting maybe some mixed vegetables and so on, you're not worried about the spillage of the oil on your clothes, because at the end of the day you are well protected and so on. So unless you do not wear properly, that's when you'll always do things a bit scared and so on. So when you have the right equipment, you will always work effectively, okay? And you'll be able to show your skills without getting scared of maybe burning yourself and so on. So these equipments are very, very important for you to be able to be provided with, and the hotel industry provides their employees with this. They actually provide you with each and every equipment that you're going to use, and also the uniform, okay, safety materials, the clothing. Maybe for example, even if you're working in the housekeeping, whereby you'll find that you are using maybe specific tools for cleaning, they'll provide you with those tools, they'll provide you with the gloves and so on, so that when you're working, you are working when you are well protected. Okay, I think those are some of the responsibilities. There are actually so many. There are so many. There's so many. So it is really important. I think I've already sent you the notes that include them. So it is up to you to be able to make sure that you have added maybe a few points that I might not have mentioned. So another important one before I wind up on the duties of an employee is remunerations. Okay, so remunerations is actually in terms of pay. So and say pay wages and on time. Okay, so the employer has the right to pay wages. Okay, most of the time you just don't work for free. Okay, especially if maybe you secured this job because you want to pay for your basic needs and so on. So you also expect at the end of the month to be paid. okay, for you to be able to maybe make your ends meet and so on. So the employer is entitled to be able to remunerate you, okay, for the work that you have done. So you have already agreed on the amount of money that they are supposed to pay you, and that is exactly what they are supposed to pay you in regardless, okay. So it is really important, and of course, if they do not pay you, then definitely you can be able to sue them, okay, because you have worked, and it is your right to be able to get to be able to get paid, okay. You have to get your wages. So let's see what we should cover next. Any question about the duties of an employer? Duties? Any question? So let me just talk about something small about the employer also. Some of the rights according to Act Caption 236, which says that the employer has a duty not to employ underage children. So basically, this Employment Act, okay, does not allow the employer to be able to employ children. Okay, these are people people who are under the age of 18 years. So in case they are found employing them, then they will be sued. Okay, so and also the employer has the right to an employee to be able to be given sufficient notice before termination of the contract of employment. Okay, I don't know if some of these companies really take this one seriously. I don't know, especially in the public institution. This this one can apply there, but most of the times in the private, maybe sectors, they really do not consider this. But you as an employee who is working there, the employer has a responsibility to you to be able to give you sufficient notice, okay? Maybe a 1 month's notice for you at least to be able to find another job, okay? So it's not very courteous for the employer just to, to you walk into the office and they tell you that, we have fired you, okay? So where do you start from, okay? So I think the employers should really consider this, especially in the private sector, mostly because I think in the public sector they do this. They always give you a notice for you to be able to at least, try to come to terms what the situation is going to be, okay? So at least you can be able, maybe for example, if it is defending yourself, or maybe trying to go against this notice of termination, at least you have enough time to do that. So it is your right as an employee to do that, just the same way whenever you want to vacate your house, you always give maybe your landlord at least a notice, okay? So you just don't leave the premises like that. At the end of the day, you had created a relationship through the contract. So at least you should be courteous enough to be able to give them a notice, okay? For them at least to be able to even get time to maybe give you maybe the money they advance money, for example, and for them to be able to put also a notice for maybe a vacancy which is going to be there. So I think those are some of the duties that the employer has, and you will notice also. I think which hotel was that? That was just they woke up just one day and they had public notice all over the gazette saying that they have terminated or they have fired all their employees. Okay, so they were sued. Okay, number one, on the grounds whereby under the employment contract, it says that the employer has to give at least a notice. Okay, and regardless whether they are having this pandemic or not. So it is really important just to follow the procedure, not just to assume that this one will work on your favor. So the duties of the employees. So there are also so many.
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Chair, what if it happens that an employee has an accident in the hotel, and it happens that he loses his life? Can the employer compensate for the family?
Yeah, of course. Of course, actually, if it is during the work hours or when the employee was in duty, then the employer has to compensate. Okay, they will have to compensate for the accident that happened, and most of the time that's why you will always find that also the employees have these life policies. Sometimes even the employers normally take life policies also for the employees, just in case of some accidents which will happen. So you'll notice that I think also when you're going for your attachment, yeah, I noted. I think back in my days when I went for my first attachment, the university gave us this insurance policy. Just the hotel was not liable to anything that could happen to us during the time that we are going to work over there. So the university caters for it. I don't know. I think for example, when you're going to go for your attachment, the university gives you an insurance. Okay, I don't know. It amounts to some money. In case of an accident, in case maybe of death, in case of anything can happen. Okay, we are humans, so just in case maybe for example you get an accident, maybe for example you lose one limb and so on, you can be able to be compensated. So the industry, especially if it is a hotel which you are working in, you are going to work in for, will opt not to take such huge responsibility. Okay, so they will have to make sure that you have this insurance with you. Okay, some hotels are a bit strict. They're a bit strict. So I think, and that's why you can't just, decide to go for attachment like that. So the university has to be able to know that they have sent a certain number of students out. Thinking from that line, then the hotel has a responsibility to their employees, okay, making sure that they have this policy. Okay, just in case there is an accident and so on, you can be compensated and your family can be compensated, just because, like for example, in terms of maybe you lose your life when you are working. Okay, So the insurance can be able to compensate for you. So the employers have to make sure at least each and every employee has a policy, okay? A life policy, just in case of incidences. And this reminds me that I think I gave you a case study of the same. I think we will tackle that case study later on, as we maybe when we wind up the session. So who asked the question? Is it you, Mary? Mary, you're the one who asked the question, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So the answer is yes. They will compensate you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why they will always try as much as possible. They put the right things where they're supposed to be to avoid any incidents or accidents. So that reminds me also, I think there was an incident that happened. I think that employee, I don't know if it is Brookside, okay, where one of the employee went and turned on the machine, and one of the employees was boiled to death. Yeah. So definitely they will have to compensate. They had to compensate for the lost employee. Number one, because he was the employee of the company. And number two, they have a responsibility for that employee just in case there is an accident. Okay, apart from, taking, suing the employee who had done such a, is it gruesome? I don't know. It was really cruel, okay, but maybe the other employee was not aware that there was someone in the boiler, okay. So they had to compensate them as a company. They had to compensate. They had to take care of the burial. They had to compensate the family, and so on. Okay, so those ones are always included in the contract of employment. So they could not turn away. So I think we can talk about the rights of employees. So the employees actually have a right. I think we can talk about entitlement to housing. Okay, proper housing. So you will always see that. Just put it here. Rights of employees. So basically, they are entitled, maybe for example, to join a union. Okay. To join a trade union, that's your right, to be able to join a trade union. Most of the times when you join these trade unions, they always fight for your rights. Okay. Sometimes you might not be you might not be vocal in terms of, maybe, for example, articulating some of the things that are affecting you, but the union can comprehensively, articulate these rights for you. Okay, so and that's why we have the trade union, which is under who at all. Yeah. So he always keeps on, articulating the rights of employees, and if it, needs them, going to the employer's place, then they can do so. They even go ahead suing the company, the employers on your behalf, okay? If they violate, maybe for example, your rights as an employee. That reminds me also, I think we can try remembering these incidents that happened. I don't know how many people were able to see it, whereby you could see, I think there is an Indian, was it an Indian or a Chinese, who was beating up his employee? Yes. Anyone who came across that story? Just put your mic on and talk to me because I haven't muted anyone. Mary?
It was a Chinese employer.
So it was a yeah, it was all over news, and it got to attention even to the trade unionists. So it was serious, and the trade union even, had to sue that company, took drastic measures. Yeah, so you could see that just a one wrong can make even the whole company to be, closed down. Okay, so they were chased away just because of, violating the rights of the employees. So it is that serious, and you could see that, Atwoli was really mad about the issue and trying to, vocalize the rights of the employees. Okay, no one is subjected to such awful, awful incidences. Okay, no one is supposed to beat you when you are working. So there is no there is no contract which is stipulated whereby if you make a mistake as an employee, you are supposed to be beaten up. Okay, so because it is not even in the contract which the guy was given, then they had no right to be able to violate that. So that's why you could see that there was a lot of drastic measures, and people were really mad about each and everything that the guy was done to, and they had to close it down. Okay, even they had even to go to the courts for it. So Mary, I can see your mic on. You wanted to add something?
And yeah, is there a possibility that they do beat them over there?
To do what? Sorry.
Is there any possibility that those Chinese employers beat our Kenyan men over there in their country?
There is no right. There is no right, and they have no right at all. And it's not even, they don't even write it in their contract. Okay, so and that's why I think there was a time also, there was a lot of violation of our employees' rights here in Kenya, especially in these Middle East countries. Okay, especially for people who are going as maids. Okay, so if you could hear their stories, they were not really interesting stories. Okay, though some employers say that these ones are oral, terms and conditions, but it is really important to be able to adhere to what you have written down, okay, because that is basically what you can be sued for. So the Middle East countries, actually, it is uh, a no-go zone to our Kenyan employees who are thinking of going there because of the treatment that goes on over there. So sometimes the Kenyan government has a limited capacity in terms of regulating whatever that happens on the other side. Okay, most of the time when you want to go to these countries, you normally do it at your own risk. Okay, there's some countries which really don't bother about people coming from other countries, okay? They just take it as a responsibility, whatever that you agreed with your employer, it's a done deal. But it is really important for you also to do a background check. Just don't choose to go to a country just because maybe because their wages are good, but also think about how do they take care of their employees. Okay, some people just say that it is really good also to work in an environment which you feel appreciated, an environment which even the employers are taking care of you and so on. So let the pay not move you, but let whatever that the employer is doing to you move you. Okay, so if you get attracted to money, you might end up to be subjected to this hurtful things that can happen to you. And there are some countries which are so good. Okay, like for example, when you're talking about Dubai, we are talking about Canada, we're talking about Germany, Australia, and so on. So these countries are actually a bit sensitive to employment for the employees and so on. So those are some of the countries you should also check on. Okay, just don't go to any country. As much as if you get that certificate of your certificate, you will get some lucrative jobs, but it is up to you to be able to choose which countries that you might want to work. You have also to check on their contract. Okay, read through it. If you agree, then you can choose to. If you do not agree, you feel that it is too much for you, do not go. Okay, the worst thing is just going there and keep on bothering people at home about the problems that you are facing. Always do a background check. So we can talk about entitlement to housing. It is really important, and that's why you'll always find, especially some employers go ahead give you housing, maybe in terms of pay. They just give you, maybe for example, according maybe to your pay slip. I don't know, you can even ask your relatives or your parents to be able to show you their pay slips if they're comfortable to do that. You will notice that when you get your pay slip, there is that amount they will always just put there. Okay, housing allowance. Okay, it comes in terms of allowance. So housing allowance that becomes like a complete gross wage that you're supposed to get, but they will always subdivide it. Okay, some companies go ahead subdividing it. Maybe they can say maybe like 10,000 housing allowance, 5,000. So it depends with also your gross income. Okay, so that amount of money should also try to cater. Some people spend much more than in their house allowance. So I don't know, there are people who really like living large. Okay, you spend more than whatever the employer had projected you using. So but at least they make sure at least there is a bit of allowance for your housing. Other, you'll get that other employers even give you transport allowance. It comes with it depends also with the kind of institution or place that you will be working in. So just don't think that this one applies to each and every organization, but most of them should at least make sure that they have housing allowance. So the employee is also entitled to leaves. I think we can talk about leaves in general, because nobody can work 24/7. Nobody can work maybe from Monday to Friday, and let's say Monday to Monday, okay, without even resting. Okay, so you will always find that there leaves in between, and that one is also included in your contract of employment. Maybe monthly leave or maybe compassionate leave. So they depend. Okay, like for example, you get pregnant and you need to get your baby, you are given maternity leave and so on. So even if you're given these leaves, they should not reduce your money. Okay, so they will continue giving you the amount of money that you are supposed to earn at the end of the month, and still go for your leaves. Okay, so, and that's why you'll find that just because of this pandemic, you will find that most of the people are even given leaves which are called, I think most of you have heard about unpaid leaves. Okay, so unlike the ones which when things were normal, whereby people could just go to leaves and they are still paid their money. Okay, this one you get nothing. Okay, you are just given a leave, but you get no money at the end of the day. It's just that they just appreciate you working with them, and if things are back to normal, they will, you'll get back to, to getting the amount that they had promised you. But things keep on changing, especially right now with this pandemic. So these rights can be, altered a bit, because it is something that is affecting everyone countrywide. So you can't like sue these companies because of not paying you, or when they are delaying your payment. So it is something that you also have to understand, because it is not affecting only you, but it is affecting everyone. Okay, so you will note that if you take even these through calls, they will even hardly hear you, because it is something that affects everyone. Sometimes people get even study leaves. They pay you, but they reduce a bit of money that you're supposed to be paid. You might even get a study leave for 2 years. Okay, they keep on paying you maybe 80% of what you are entitled to, but you still get to study. Okay, I think these are some of the things that you should also be considering. Okay, just in case you get your employment and you want to advance your studies, you can be able to do that. Okay, so you get a job, you go get a job, and then maybe take a study leave, come back, continue, advance yourself. So basically, I want us to talk about, unless there's any question, I want us to talk maybe about just to touch on the duties of the employees. Basically, you can just help me maybe mentioning a few. There are things that you can be able to think about. Okay, like for example, respecting your employers. Okay, so you have to respect the person who is employing you. This is not your brother or sister, so you'll always have to make sure that there is a bit of respect in between the two of you. Okay, make sure that you are respecting also maybe the rules that they have stipulated. Like for example, if they say that you're supposed to report to work by 7 or 8, then you're supposed to do that. Okay, so it is not really courteous for you to be able to do things the way you would want to do them. Just the same way, like the school actually, for you even to be in this learning institution, it is a way to mold you to how the future is. Okay, how this outside world looks like. For you even to have a schedule, a timetable telling you that you're supposed to have your classes by 8, it is your responsibility. Okay, it is your duty as a student to be able to make sure by 8 you are in that class. Okay, so these things you will carry them through. If you're someone who is a late comer, trust me, you will not start waking up early when you're going for your jobs. Some of you are going to lose your jobs just because of you not, trying to follow the rules that are there for you. Okay, so make sure it's always said that the way you are training yourself is the way you are. Okay, whatever you are doing, there will be no difference, even if you're going to get maybe a job. Okay, so if you have certain habits, those are the habits that you're going to carry even to your jobs. So the way you behave yourself, even in this learning institution, is the way you're going to behave during your employment. Okay, the same way you don't respect lecturers, maybe for example, the same way you talk to lecturers anyhow you feel like, the same way you'll be talking to your employers. And trust me, for lecturers, at least we feel like it is our responsibility to make sure that we are shaping you to the right way. But at the end of the day, remember that the employers won't care. Okay, you talk to them badly and they fire you. Okay, so there are greater consequences. So if you do not train yourself right now, you will be having a big problem when you're going to find you're going to work. Are you together? So just also try talking to your relatives or maybe your parents who are working. Try to engage them. How is working environment? Remember, not everyone is just going to be an entrepreneur. Some of you need to work to find the capital to start your own businesses. And before you do that, you'll always want to you'll always be under someone. Okay, someone that you're supposed to respect, someone that you're supposed to do things the way they're supposed to, they're telling you, and so on. So it is what it is actually. Because for example, if you're told to wear a certain dress code and you feel like, okay, this is too much for me, don't think that it is going to be different from the work, the jobs that you're going to get. You'll be required to wear uniforms. Okay, just for you to get that paycheck at the end of the month. There are things that you normally have to do just for you to be able to make your ends meet. And if you do not learn those things right now, if you do not learn to take, taking orders, if you do not learn to do things without supervision right now, just the same way when you're given an assignment, you just choose when to do your assignment and not to do your assignment. Just know that you'll find yourself, maybe for example, you will end up landing into a very good job, but your habits will not allow you to stay in that job. Okay, so if you do not learn these things right now, then it is definitely not going to be a walkthrough for you. Okay, so those are some of the duties, and I think you can also, come up with a lot of the duties that you're supposed to do as an employer. Okay, you have to respect each and every rule and regulation that they have set for you to be able to at least work in a good environment. So I want us to talk about maybe so I think maybe group 4 will be able to take us through the health and safety maybe in the next session. The next section, maybe they're going to do that. So unless there is any question on the type of in terms of the contract of employment, and just for you to be able to know, some contracts keep on differing. Like for example, we have the permanent contract. Yes, Mary, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, in addition to the rules for the employees,
Uh-huh.
when we talk of the being honesty
Yes.
or such things like.
Yes, of course. And that's why I told you that these things, some of them you just have to think and just, say them, okay?
Yeah.
So you can talk about honesty, which is key. Okay, you just don't lie to your employers anyhowly, okay? And that's why I told you these things are things more of like your habits, okay? You can just remove them from the habits that you normally have. There are people who just lie, okay? It's their nature to lie. I don't know. Just lie right, left, center, just the way you want to, to do your things. But just note that it is not really good for you to be able to lie, okay? Not always good, because when the employer will not remember that there is always drastic measures. At the end of the day, they are the ones who can fire and hire. Okay, so if they can fire and hire, then these are very powerful people. Okay, just the same way you can just lie to me and maybe I give you a punishment, and maybe you maybe you apologize and it's fine, but to the employers you can't do that. Okay, so you are supposed to be honest in regardless to what, because at the end of the day you will be fired and you will go back to zero whereby you don't have an income. Okay, so it is really important to be honest, respectful. What else? What kind of habits do you have? You also have to be timekeepers. Okay, you are entitled to come to work as you have been scheduled. If you're supposed to come to work at 7, come to work at 7. Don't come to work at 8. Okay? So if you're supposed to, if it is a leave that you're supposed to, you give proper notice. Okay? If you want to go for leave, you have to, to do things formally. You just don't decide, today I'm not going to work. Atafanya nini? So, that's not your responsibility at all. It's not one of your duties. So yeah, I can see Judith, you're saying that be responsible. You have to be responsible. Nobody wants to follow you around. Okay, we did not employ you. We employed you because you are qualified. And especially people keep on lying, especially during your interviews. You are so submissive. You go to your interviews, you lie. You give a different persona. Okay, some personalities that you do not have, you even portray them for that very day for you to be employed. But when you are employed, you become something else. So it is really important to carry on. Okay, whatever you are, these behaviors, please try. And that's why I'm telling you, whoever you are right now is the person you're going to be, even if you are going to get maybe a very good job, and you will end up ruining your job. I don't know if some of your parents or if your relatives tell you some of the mistakes that they do. Okay, if they are if you're too close with someone who has worked before and they have lost their jobs maybe, and they are able to share with you, then they will be able to tell you, this is what is happening. Okay, maybe I came late to work and I was fired. Okay, some people lie because whatever they did is just something, you will take them like, you'll think little of them. Okay, but it is just a habit that has been building up. Okay, so it is very good to be responsible. Okay, don't allow people to follow you around. Don't wait. Don't do things because it's just the same way, if a lecturer is not in class, you cannot read. Okay, so the same way you will be at work, you are at your office and you are not doing anything unless someone comes on and knocks at your door. Okay, just because there is maybe the manager or the person or the supervisor is not there, then you'll go hiding. You won't do the job. Trust me, these things, if you do not learn them, you better hear it from me. you will lose jobs. Okay, you lose even the most important thing that you have really wanted. So take care of whatever that you have and try mending some of your habits. Redemptor, you're saying loyal. Yes, it is really important. Okay, some people, the employers are looking for people who are loyal in terms of, like, for example, people want loyalty, just like a relationship. Okay, I don't know if you can relate with this. Just the same way you are in a relationship. If you are married or you are dating or you are looking forward to dating, so you will always need someone who is loyal. Okay, at the end of the day, you are in a relationship with someone. For example, you get let's just take this scenario whereby you are dating someone, you are working in Nairobi and they are working in Mombasa. Loyalty is very key, whereby you feel comfortable that the other person treasures me the way I treasure them. The other person respects me the way I'm respecting them. The other person cannot cheat on me because I am not cheating to them. Okay, so just like a relationship which is based on loyalty, okay, the other person being loyal to you, the same way a contract should be loyal. Okay, whereby it's not that you have, for example, you have signed a contract to work with me. Tomorrow you are working with another company which is a competitor. Okay, you are giving out secrets about my company to my competitor. Nobody wants people who are not loyal. Okay, the same way you feel like whenever you tell your friends something and they keep on, the entire community, the entire estate knows about your things. You don't want such people. Okay, so you want a friendship which is based on loyalty. The other person, no matter what, they will not betray you. No matter what, they are going to stick with you. That is loyalty. Okay, so when you are entering into a contract with your employers, you should be loyal enough. Are we together? That is the basis of everything. If you're not even loyal to your friends, I don't think you even need those friends. If the friends are not loyal to you, you don't need them. Okay, so the same way, if you're not loyal to the company, they do not need you. They will definitely fire you. Okay, if they notice that is what you are doing, you are there busy, telling them the secret ingredients that you're using, then they will definitely not need you in their company. So these are the habits that we should be able to inculcate in ourselves. So Mary also saying about trustworthy. Yes, it is really important. You should always, at least have that mutual, I think, relationship with your employers. Okay, so at least I think trustworthy we talked about in terms of honesty, whereby at least you are honest. Okay, if maybe you have made a mistake, you have to tell them, okay, I made this mistake, you apologize, and at least you can work in a good relationship. Nobody, actually, I think nobody feels comfortable lying to the other person. I don't know how people work. I don't know, maybe some of you, if you are comfortable lying. Okay, so it is always good just to be able to honor your mistakes. Okay, for example, if you know that you haven't done good job, you have to admit. Okay, you have to admit, I haven't done the work that I was supposed to do. I beg your pardon, I will not do that again. Okay, so at least the employer will see that you are really someone who can be able to take responsibility. Okay, you have to take responsibility of each and every mistake that you do, and that is what the employer needs from you. Okay, so there are so many that you can come up with. So basically, those are some of the duties that the employer really requires from you. Okay, So you will notice that even during your interviews, those are some of the things that they will always want to, at the end of the day, they will not, it's not about how you are answering the questions, but the person you are. Okay. If you walk into a room, I can be able even to tell who you are. Okay. There are people who are trained to be able to read, to read people's minds. And that is what the employer does. They just don't employ you for the sake of employing. At the end of the day, they want someone, someone who they can relate with, someone who is, has all these, personalities. And that's why sometimes you might be asked, okay, what are your strengths? Okay, you'll find that some employers ask you, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Okay, that question is just not meant to be there just like a by the way. That question carries a lot of worth. Okay, there are employers who just want to see the kind of person you are. And if you fail on that one, then even if you have perfect skills, then it does not help you. And that's why I'm telling you, work on your habits. Things that you think are your weaknesses, work on them. Okay? You don't have to lose a job just because of you don't know how to control your temper. Huh? Check on how to control your temper. There are people who are temperamental. Okay? You get pissed off so easily. You should be someone who is, you have to regulate it. Think of ways on which you can be able to regulate it. So that at least you do not find yourself on the wrong side. So that is really important for you to note. I think you can come up with a lot. There are so many, as long as it makes sense in relation to the topic. So just don't think outside the topic. So I want to talk about the contracts that we have in employment. So we have maybe, for example, permanent contracts. If you can talk about these ones, then we wind up. We have permanent contracts. These ones are people who are employed on permanent basis, whereby, for example, you are entitled to much more. Okay, like for example, if you're a permanent employee, then I think you even get maybe some extra allowances. There are some extra allowances for you. You can be able even to get loans. For instance, you can be able to enter into circles. You can be able to, get a medical insurance and so on. So a permanent contract comes with a lot of benefits, and especially also, I think in public organizations, actually a permanent job is really a lucrative job. Okay, so if you get a permanent job, then at least even you can be able even to get bigger loans. Okay, you are entitled to even get millions of loans just because of that contract. So it depends also with a few things with the organization, with whatever they can give in terms of the employees who are in permanent basis. So they keep on differing. So just like there might be some differences between maybe public and private organizations. So we have others which we call the contractual contracts. So the contractual contracts, I don't know, I think I've written it right. The contractual contracts, these ones are maybe basically you are employed on the basis of a contract, whereby your contract has a specific time for termination. Okay, like for example, you can be given maybe a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract. And especially don't be surprised, because our industry also has a lot of contractual contracts. Okay, so but they keep on changing it with time, okay, with experience and so on. Some people just give you, maybe for instance, you might enter the first time as a contract, then they can change it. okay, with time, depending on the experience also and how important you are to the organization. So it also depends a lot with all the, what we have talked about. Are you loyal? Are you responsible? Are you trustworthy? Are you honest? Are you, responsible? So basically, they will keep on changing depending on who you are. Okay, so if you are better, an employee who cannot be, they cannot, um, they trust you, they feel like you are the best person they have ever gotten in their company, then they will promote you, okay, maybe to a permanent job and a better position. So contractual, yeah, they are so common. So that one actually, the employer, actually in the permanent one, the employer really has a system in which, like a procedure on how they can, terminate. They just don't terminate your contracts, your permanent contracts like that. There is a procedure that is always there for you, for you to be terminated. And even if you are supposed to terminate the contract of a permanent employee, you also have to pay some benefits. Okay. So they really have to think twice in terms when they are, terminating the contract of a permanent employee. So they will always lure you, like especially the public organizations. It is actually the permanent employees are indispensable. Okay, you cannot be able to just fire them the way you want. Okay, they always try to lure you to resign. So most of the time they lure you to resign because they know if they are to fire you, they will have to compensate you dearly, and the compensation also depends on how for how long you have been working. Okay, so if you have worked there, there are people sometimes who even die working, okay, for that company. So they end up paying a lot of money. So if you think of firing a permanent employee in a public institution, then it's a lot of money you will have to compensate them, okay? That compensation also makes them even richer than what they are. So when you're talking about the contractual contracts, this is whereby at least you have a specific time in which your contract ends. Some, give you 6 months contract, some give you 1 year, some give you 2 to 3 years, and so on. So the contract, upon when it immediately ends, for example, if it is 6 months or 1 year and it collapses, it automatically collapses on the year in which it was supposed to end, okay? Just the employer can just, it's not like they are going to fire you, but they will just wait for your contract to end, okay? And they don't renew it, okay? So if they renew it, then you continue working with them. So they choose whether to renew it or not, depending on how you have been working with them. So the contractual one, you have to be a bit keen because that one they can terminate your contracts anytime. So you have to ensure that at least you are a good employee. So they keep you. Most of the companies give employees maybe these contractual contracts just to keep them on the tools. Okay, so if you know that you can be able to be fired anytime, or your contract can be terminated, then at least you work double. Okay, so you make sure that at least you are in good books so that your contract is renewed. So that's the secret in which maybe some companies use for them just to, to make sure that their employees are working and working good. So I think we have another one we call casual contracts. Casual contracts, these are contracts in which you sign up to them, especially maybe when let's say especially our industry does a lot of the casual contracts because of the high and the low seasons. So, for example, if it is in December, you will note that we will be maybe a lot of guests normally come in. There's a holiday, so people want to relax. So you'll find that you'll find that you have a lot of guests at that time. And when you have a lot of guests, then you'll require extra employees to work at that period. And maybe, for example, it is 1 or 2 months. And if it is 1 or 2 months, then you can't put them on the contract. You'll end up, giving them a casual contract whereby maybe you say that you're going to work with us for 2 months or 1 month, and you pay them on a daily basis. Okay, this one you end up paying them with a daily basis or maybe weekly, weekly, monthly. So this one differs on how you're going to pay. Sometimes you even don't even write a pay slip for them. You just give them cash. Just like, for example, if maybe you want someone to wash your clothes, the same way when you want someone to wash your clothes, they come on that very day when you have a lot of work in the house, and they do what? You pay them depending on the work that they have done on that very day. You don't need them tomorrow, then you can just tell them, okay, verbally. Are you together? So that one doesn't require a lot, and definitely you can't be able to sue your employers just like that, because that contract is a bit, is on the balance, okay? So it depends on the agreement basically, and that's why most of the time I encourage my students to start with the casual employment, especially if things were normal. Apart from this COVID-19, most of my students actually I ended up getting jobs through casual. Okay, like for example, you work on weekends. Like most of the hotels can employ you on weekends. Like for example, the F&B department, the food and beverage service department, to be specific. They always want waiters and the waitresses just for them to supplement the workforce they have. Yeah. So in return, they will just pay you something small, and depending on your work on that day, they will want maybe to put you on a contract, and maybe take you into a permanent contract later on. So at the end of the day, you have to start small, and also it is a place for you to be able to learn. Okay, to be able to gather your skills to work better. Okay, so you can always start from somewhere. At the end of the day, our industry requires, it's more of like an employer getting to see what you can do. And if an employer can see what you can do, then they can be able to do what? They can be able to promote you. And that's why we always emphasize on the skills. At the end of the day, your skills sell you. In the hospitality industry, we don't say that the papers are not they are not important. Papers are important. Okay, apart from papers being important, your skills at the end of the day are the ones which can take you places. Okay, for example, the papers can get you into the job in terms of getting an interview, but after that, are you still going to use your papers? If you are supposed maybe to serve a guest, are you just going to show them, F&B service practical, I got an A? Like, they will want to see, what can you do? Can you do according to what your papers are saying you can do? So make sure that you practice. And I'm telling you that this industry requires you to have the proper skills. Okay, whatever that you are lucky enough that at least you had done your practicals, so make sure that you sharpen these practicals even if you're at home. Okay, for example, if maybe it's cutting the classical the classical types of vegetables. Practice. It doesn't hurt practicing it. Taking 5 minutes to be able to cut juliennes, to be able to cut maybe maybe a specific style, maybe if it is a roll cut and so on. So it is really important. If it is maybe trying to serve, maybe you can just demonstrate, maybe serving wine with a bottle of soda. Perfect your skills. Use this time to your advantage. Okay, at the end of the day, things are going to go normal and you will need these jobs. Okay, so work on your skills. It's not for you to wait for the lecturer to remind you, okay, this is where we had reached last, so let us pick up. Remember, this is the time you're going to enter into the industry, and this industry requires you to have the right skills. So let us behave professionally and practice even without the supervision of our lecturers.